All right. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Stories of Selling Human podcast. I'm your host, Alex Smith, and I started this podcast because I believe everyone in the world will someday be faced with a situation where they have to create change. I think we all want to be seen, heard, and understood, but the people who will get our attention, convince, persuade, or influence us are not just salespeople. I think there's great people in all throughout the workforce that we're drawn to. I'm going to share their stories here so we can find out what makes us human, practice their human skills, and ultimately we'll all become better at selling by being human. All right. This is someone I'm so excited to have on the podcast. I'm, just in researching her, she just pops off the screen on YouTube videos and in her Facebook Live sessions. I met her at one of our company's events, and she was I could tell right off the bat she was different. She connected people in our group differently, and people are raving about her afterwards. And so I want her to meet all of you. Laurie, she's one of America's leading wine experts, and she's the author of an award-winning book, The Sipping Point, A Crash Course in Wine. She's a certified sommelier, national speaker, and TV personality who is not afraid to tell you her first wine came from a box. Her edgy approach to demystifying wine caught the eye of major networks, and she's been a guest on shows like The Dr. Oz Show, Fox Morning News, Martha Stewart Living Today, and ABC News at Noon. Laurie regularly speaks at conferences and really at businesses to connect at events, and she also has a career as a former software salesperson and also a career in comedy and improv. Please welcome none other than Laurie Forster to the podcast. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you. And you got it exactly right, too, because I get called Forster, so I just say Forster, and you did it perfectly, so thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, wow. I took a chance, so you would have had to correct me.
Nope.
Laurie, I'm saying I'm so excited. This is like a great way to end my day because, for everyone listening, this is our first, it's 5:00 somewhere, and this is the first guest who, she's an expert on wine, and she's demystifying it, and she likes to say, on our Zoom chat, I thought it was funny, we're not day drinking, it's 5:00, we're day tasting wine.
Right.
And I happen to be tasting if you know anything about, my wife loves to go to Napa. We fell in love with Napa like years ago, and we got a couple memberships, and this is one. It's Satui Family Red. It's from St. Helena, and right in Napa. And we're just like big red wine drinkers, so it's kind of like, for a lot of people, it'd be a huge red wine, but this is like a blend for us. Nice. So, what do you have, Laurie? What are you drinking?
It's spring, even though it doesn't feel like it outside. It is spring, and so rosé time is upon us. So, I brought, and I'm using my awesome vin glacé, which keeps it chilled while we're sitting here. This is the Stoller Pinot Noir Rosé from Willamette Valley, Oregon.
Ooh, yes.
And it is Willamette, not Willamette. It rhymes with a word we can't say on this podcast, but you get the idea. But they're an amazing winery out there in the Willamette, all female winemakers. And Bill Stoller actually made his money in the temporary staffing business, still does, because you need to have that huge fortune to make the small one in the wine business. So he's a great entrepreneur and really has a wonderful women behind him. So I love to support.
That's awesome. That's one region I have not been to Oregon and gone to that Willamette Valley. Thank you for helping me pronounce it.
Yes, you must go.
Things. Yeah.
Yes, I took like 10 ladies there last summer, and it was an amazing wine tour. This June, I'm going to Portugal, so I'm excited about that.
Oh, my goodness. Oh. Well, Laurie, so the reason why I said you like really popped off the screen, because, I've been to a lot of events where we have speakers and there's like maybe even a dynamic speaker and they have great content. But like what I like noticed from like the get-go is your ability to, connect with people in a quick amount of time in a large room, and not just connecting with like, like, I don't know, just titles, or you weren't just like, throwing things out there, hoping people would do it. You were actually like talking to individual people. You were actually connecting other people with each other. So it wasn't just about you. And we'll talk a lot about that today, and like kind of your road and some of the tactics that you used. But Laurie, I ask all my guests, like, when you hear the term, and I'll say it to you, you heard this, like, the title of the podcast, what it is. When I say the term to you, sell something, but sell it by being human. What does that mean to you, and what do you think about when you hear that term, that phrase?
Yeah, well, a couple things. I mean, if you want to go way back, my mother owned a lighting and furniture store while I was growing up, and she had that store for 25 years. And so I think I had a lot of great modeling. People would come in, they needed to fix a lamp or find a new lamp or get new furniture for their living room. And it's about solving a problem and making people happy, by giving them what they want. So I guess I didn't necessarily see sales as a dirty thing that a lot of people think of it like a used car salesman or something. So fast forward, I majored in supply chain management at Penn State, which is really hot right now, right? But that was my major, and I did that with Kraft Foods for a while. But at some point, I made the switch to selling software for supply chain to Fortune 100 companies. And my role, if you probably know from Docebo, was as a pre-sales person. So I would go in and understand the customer situation, what were the problems, and then be able to demo to them how we could solve those problems and what would be, the value that we could create for them. And so that was invaluable. I feel like what I learned there, software, you got to be quick on your feet. There's lots of different things going on, and you're talking to a C-level executives typically, or at least high-level executives. So you've got to make something complicated simple because they don't have a lot of time. Yeah. And so I learned so much there about, being a great presenter, but also really, more than it's like, oh, I'm a great presenter. It's like I'm presenting to them how I'm going to solve their problems. And so, and what value I can bring. And that's kind of how I take on the wine world now that I made that switch in 2001 to start my own business, to really focus on events for many, many years live. And then I had to do that ugly word pivot in 2020 into the Zoom tasting world. So now I'm doing both. But I really try to translate that live experience over Zoom. And I feel like you just have to treat it like it's a live tasting. And, when I see the chat comments and Alex said, wow, this red blend is his favorite, but so did Karen, I'm going to incorporate that into my presentation and always try to connect with people. That's what I do in a live room, but it's what I'm trying to do on Zoom. First, I want to connect with you, and then I want to be very, very present, which is super important when you're tasting wine because it's a full sensory experience. So you have to be present for that and in the moment when I'm doing my wine tasting, as we call it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think that's so key because, you can, some people don't have that framework and think intentionally like you do because you're like, okay, first, I want to connect with you. I find little ways, maybe it's a joke, maybe it's something self-deprecating, maybe it's just something to relate. We can all be there. We can, you put people there. I don't know about you, but has anybody drank wine out of a solo cup before or
yes.
a paper cup? And
I don't know if you remember, but I did. I do always try to start with something humorous. And way back when I've always done that. I'm from Jersey. We have to have a sense of humor because everyone's making fun of us. So now I live in Maryland, but I've taken stand-up comedy training. So humor, I think, goes a long way because wine, just like a lot of other subjects, can be like, ooh, I don't know anything about wine. She's going to call me out, Yeah. And so humor, and I don't know if you remember, I outed myself, and I shared the first wine I ever tried. What was yours? I don't know if you
I don't know if I shared. I can't even remember. Who knows? The first wine I ever tried, I was probably 14 or 15, and it was probably out of my parents' liquor cabinet or something like that.
Yeah.
Just a church wine or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, mine was Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hill. Which we all kind of laugh at because it is something that, I teen might enjoy because it's, sweet and fruity, and it's not, in my mind, really wine. But that always kind of makes people laugh because they have, the Thunderbird or there's all these silly ones that people have tried in the beginning. And they're like, okay, she's not going to, stand up here and just try to prove how much I know and you don't. Like, to me, that's not, I'm a coach for a reason. A coach is helping you become better and right there with you rather than like laying off every detail that you ever heard about this wine.
Yeah. And that's like tough because like I bet there's a lot of like probably like really great. I'm sure you've met them. Like I almost am thinking about. I'm sure you've met like really intelligent sommeliers, and even like they're great people. Like if you get to know them on a personal level, but their presentation style, it's a tough line, because once you lose one person or whatever, it's easy to lose a group when you're maybe leading with facts or you're you're teaching first, right? Like you're just leading with the wine, like without like help us get to know you, like why do you love it, like what's something relatable about you, right? So like and then they kind of tune out. Like I don't know if you've seen that happen with other sommeliers or presenters, and I don't know, can you point to things that you've seen people do to maybe, because we'll talk through the things that you do in detail, but what are the things that are people are doing, maybe yourself, maybe you've been on a wine tour with a sommelier or a tour guide and you just felt disconnected, or maybe like there was things that they could have done, they just missed opportunities.
Not naming any names, of course. I gotta stay in this industry, but I would say not leading with the connection. And like you said, leading with the facts. And, I think it's a Maya Angelou quote that, people might not ever remember what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And so because when I started doing my SOM training, I was, a career changer. I'm coming out of software. I left a very lucrative job on a sabbatical that I never went back from, but to start training in wine. And I never understood, like people like gave you a little attitude because you weren't in hospitality, because you didn't come from that background. And I'm like, if I can understand constraint-based planning, I know I can figure this thing out, this wine thing. So I think the way you make people feel has to be like your overriding thing. At least it is for me, because the minute, you kind of, maybe someone feels put down or you're trying to show that you're better than, I feel like all connection is lost, and you're gonna kind of lose people going forward. So I remember how I felt, and I had felt like that in several situations. Even before, when I was just ordering wine for clients, that's what kind of started my journey, just so I didn't look silly or stupid. Sometimes you wanted assistance, but it was like pulling teeth, or you said it wrong and they're correcting your pronunciation. There's a nice way to correct somebody's pronunciation, but you have to know the right way to do it. If you said, hey, I had this great Riesling, like, oh, Riesling, I love it. You don't even have to, like,
you don't have to correct.
Yeah. I just never understood that. So I guess, I'm always thinking of the other people, and I want them to walk away. And I think the other mistake that a lot of people make is they want to start up here at the like 100th level of wine knowledge with the pH and the this and that. And in an audience like, maybe your virtual tasting or even a large live tasting I might do, I've got people at all different levels. Unless this is a master class or something along those lines, you kind of got to ground everybody. And I don't know if you remember, but my first thing I started with was how to taste, like how professionals taste and why we swirl and why we slurp and why we're doing this and that. Yeah, so there's some people that probably already know it, yes, but there's some people that probably didn't. And so everybody feels like they can get on the same page. And then people are going to ask some more advanced questions. I'm going to sprinkle in more advanced stuff, and it naturally, everybody will get something at the level where they're at.
Yeah, that's important because, like, you're thinking about, like just something that can like broadly like bring everybody into the conversation. Even if they're like, no matter what level they're at, like, here's an insider thing, like here's just something like why we do what we do, and this
Right.
could, and this is something that, like, people may already know, but then it kind of builds from there. Like, as you start tasting, different things, you start sprinkling in different facts that, but not in a way that, like, you're leading with that, like, like you said, the hardest thing first. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's interesting. So tell me, like, in your career, so how did you get from, kind of like what you were doing in software to this, and what really, made your decision? I always like to, ask entrepreneurs this, like, what convinced you to, like you said, you left something lucrative, like what really convinced you to make the jump into doing or something like this, and why did you feel like your skills could translate from that into this?
Yeah. I guess in general, I'm pretty, this is going to sound crazy, but I'm sort of a leap before you look on a person. So I'm not afraid to take a risk or try something new. And of course, at that time I was getting married, but I didn't have children. I had a nice situation that I could take a leave of absence from my job and kind of taste test the situation. But I actually worked with a life coach for probably at least a year, and just kind of like feeling like there was something else for me. And even though I was good at and was doing well at what I was doing, I felt like there was something more. And we kind of looked at things like, what are your values, and what's important to you, and what are your interests. And that sort of created what I was going to taste test during my sabbatical, which was wine. But I also did some life coach training, because I love that whole idea of being able to help someone, get to where they want to go and do. And I feel like that was great. And that's why later, when I was coming up with the name of my business, I'm like, the wine coach. Yes. Because, it just seems inviting. Sommelier, that can be scary, can be hard to say, can be off-putting. So I worked with a coach. I decided to take this sabbatical. And then during the time of my sabbatical was actually during the tech crash of 2001. And so my exact position was done away with. I was offered something else or a package. So I took the package. And so I was able to, have those living expenses and start, in addition to training, I worked at a wine store, which was a great experience, but didn't feel like the right fit for me. But I learned a lot. It's a store in New York City called Astor Wines. I learned a ton there. And one of the things I was asked to do was lead a wine tasting for an alumni group. And that tasting is where I was like, oh, okay, this is where I can really use the skills that I used, in my software position, and relate it to wine. And I love to see everyone connecting. And so that made me, so happy. So that's when later, when I started my business, I said, this is the piece that I'm going to solely focus on, is the event piece.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
Well, walk us through like what people would see. Like, I know what I saw, but like I have to imagine, like, I'm looking at it and like it feels so natural for her. It feels so like effortless. Like, I've been on 2 of them with us, and like I said, they're like, I don't know, engaging's not even enough. Like, it's like people are like, oh my God. I was on with one of my clients for like almost like 30 minutes and after, like an after party, and we were drinking, and and we were like, can you like, like get over how good that was? And they're like, she's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, it's just, I felt like people were, and they weren't getting wasted, they're
No.
just like drinking, sipping, tasting, learning, even learning about our software. But like, it was in the context of like, the time just flew by. Like the 3 hours, I think it was like 3 hours, the time flew by. And, I just felt like I saw a lot of fun being had, and you were able to get people out of their shell. I actually witnessed people that weren't talking and like were kind of like reserved, and then they would be like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. Like, what is this? Or they're asking questions in the chat. And like, I saw it like within like 30 minutes. So I was like, okay, there's something here. I need to talk to Laurie. I don't know if she's like, like, I'm sure there's a lot of planning that goes into like, something like this. So walk us through what people might see, and like, what do you think about like when you're like planning these things? And this could be like a virtual event. I'm sure they're slightly different, obviously, in person, but what things are you thinking about to get people to come out of their shells, open up, and really, kind of engage in what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, first off, what I think about is my client who hired me and what are their objectives for the event. Because, I'll do some where there's a sales slant. There's some where it's team building focus, or client appreciation. Those are all three different kinds of objectives, I guess, if you will. And so that is top of mind for me. Yeah, I'm getting thirsty too, Alex. Hold on. But I always, like I said, start with a little humor, make people feel comfortable. And then, I need to be having as much fun as I want you guys to be having. So, I'm picking out wines that I love. I'm, all along the way, I'm engaging questions, reading the chat. It would be similar in person, but, asking people for their feedback. And one of the things I love and I think is important, and I was thinking about how what I do might relate to sales, is this whole idea of experiential learning. And so I don't know if you remember the jelly bean exercise that we did about why smelling your wine is 80% and so important, but giving people things they can do rather than just sitting there and listening to me. Smelling, asking people for their feedbacks. In the beginning, everybody's quiet, but then, they gotta maybe, I'll share something from the chat, and then people will get a little braver, if you will, or a little more willing to come out. I think, having people from the client side who, know that we want this interaction and will jump in and interact, when just to model that for everyone else. So I think those things are really important, and just giving lots of opportunities for people to engage and rewarding that, and making everybody feel great when they do. So, I mean, the wine helps too, let's face it, but
Yeah.
Let's face it.
Yeah. I just noticed that ability, like, that you like could make people feel comfortable without like embarrassing them. Like, it'd be one thing if you said like, well, like, I'm going to call on someone like Donna, like, tell us about your first experience. And like, Donna doesn't know you. Like, it's kind of weird. There's no context. It's like, what's your favorite wine? And then she's like, oh, like Cabernet. Okay. But, it's different to get her to tell a story. Like, where you can like, hey, like say, hey, like my first, I remember, like, with this wine going on a trip, and like this person said it tasted like, like golf balls, or like a tennis ball, and
Somebody
this person said it tasted like tobacco, and so you're just throwing out fun stuff that sounds totally ridiculous, and someone out there is gonna like latch onto it, like, yeah, that's funny, I got a hand of tennis ball too, or something like that.
Right.
Like, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up, but it's like you're just you're poking fun at the stuffiness too of wine, because it can be super, intimidating, stuffy, and like you said, maybe that Jersey girl in you is just trying to, make it seem a little bit more relatable. Like, do you think
Absolutely.
that's part of it? Yeah.
I do, and I think because I came from that outsider perspective, I was able to see more of the humor in it than maybe somebody who started out, as a server and then goes into the somm thing and has never really kind of been on the other side of it. I mean, we've all been on the other side of it for the most part. Most of us did not grow up drinking fine wines of Burgundy or Bordeaux. I don't know about you, but, everybody has to start somewhere, and, you can't look down at someone, because wine is preference. Wine is personal taste too. But I think once you really enable people with some skills, like the wine sandwich, if you remember, and how do you try your wine and food together, that even is, it's just a concept that we all know. You try the wine, you try the food, you try the wine. But what is less scary than a sandwich? I mean, it just kind of occurred to me, oh, it's like a sandwich. So, yeah, I guess I'm always, trying for people to feel more comfortable and connected to wine, to the tasting and what we're doing. Yeah.
I like that question. You actually made me think of like something that I could use, like, bring in something that's like, what is less scary than insert something, like,
Right.
like what you're selling, like, not like, being on the other side of someone that has more information to you about a topic is just in and of itself scary,
Right.
because you're like, you don't feel like in control. You feel a little bit like you might, I don't know, embarrass yourself or say the wrong thing, or like come across as like, silly or stupid or something like that. And so, but like if the other person is just like making fun of the whole thing, or like if they're just like offering something like, like less scary, like, trying to bring it down to a level of, just kind of like what is like the least scary thing that I can talk about right now, then it's like, okay, this person's like, this person, I'm willing to like share more, or like maybe I'm willing to like admit that I don't know something to this person because they're clearly okay with it. Like if I don't,
I mean, I certainly poke fun where, where it's obvious for our industry. But the other thing I think is just, creating these analogies, creating these fun terms that bring it to a level that everybody can embrace, but without dumbing it down. Yeah, I get people saying like, "Oh my gosh, I went to Napa for a week and I learned more in the hour with you than I did at all the wineries I went to, and you didn't dumb it down, and I didn't feel like it was like remedial." So
yeah, I mean that must be a huge compliment, because
it is.
People could spend thousands of dollars on guided tours in Napa, and obviously like Napa in and of itself, just the landscape is amazing and the wineries are amazing and the wine, but like, saying that they learned more through you, that's like, that's just saying, okay, well, like she made it. It's almost like they were receptive more, maybe like you were both teaching them things, but one was in a way that was, more fact based, or there was more like, kind of, like really in-depth learning, as opposed to like fun, like you call it edutainment.
Right.
I love that term.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I once heard you like on a comedy thing. You were saying this is the bitch slap of wines, or
yes, somebody with high acid. I think a Sauvignon Blanc.
Yes, they just hits you in the face,
right.
or something like,
Yep, it's a term for a Sauvignon Blanc.
And we can picture that. We can picture a wine that would like go, whoa, like
whoa,
really, yeah. Well, so Laurie, like before you kind of got it, I don't even know like if you can point to people in your life, like you pointed to your mother, I think, starting out, and she was like solving people's problems. Like I think the key was, like you said, making them happy, or like something like that. So who in your career like can you point to where like you would look at them and be like, you know what, they like had it, they were like people that really got people like to lean in, that were drawn to them, and if I could really think about it, like I probably picked up stuff without even realizing it. Like, can you think of, maybe it's like things your parents did, or maybe it's like a previous manager or a coworker, but can you think of people in your career that were really excellent at like connecting with people or bringing them together, and why do you think that they were?
Yeah, couple of things. I mean, I think back in the, I explained about my mom for sure. So that was a great role model. And certainly, I think for the entrepreneurial side of what I do, and the fact that, it takes a lot of guts to start your own business and to be a solopreneur business, no safety net there, or all those kinds of things. You're on your own, and it's a huge exercise in business, but also in personal development, because there's just so many facets to that. I would say in software, our founder I worked for a company called I2 Technologies, and Sanjeev Sidhu was our founder, and he was a very inspirational person that built this business from nothing to, crazy big time on the NASDAQ, later sold it to I think eventually JDA or SAP or something like that. So, what we were, I started, we had 300 people, and then, next thing you know, we got 3,000. So I was able to see that, when you have this amazing product and you're able to motivate people and inspire them to, basically buy into it, because at that time, everything was just being developed. I mean, right? The people that were buying the product are also part of developing the product. And so I think that was just to see the late 90s and see what happened back there. I wish I would have taken better notes, because there's a book there for sure. But maybe it's better left in the past anyway. But that was great. And then I think in the wine business, I've had a lot of very cool people who have, stepped up to, as I was getting started, include me, work with me. I'm a chef out of Baltimore who had a wine-themed restaurant, and I would do, monthly women's events, live events, where it'd be a wine dinner each month. And he's a very no-nonsense, humorous, fun guy, and so it was really nice to be supported in that way. And I learned so much from him and his Sam, who now works in DC. But so I had just cool people like that are willing to take you in under their wing, I guess, if that's it. And so, I try to pay that forward as well. And so, as you see people that are trying to break in and figure out, it's a maze, like, where do you go and what aspect of this business are you going to focus on? Because you can sell wine, you can restaurant, you can do what I'm doing. There's so many options. So
yeah. You I said, so you took stand-up training, and I don't know how much you ever done stand-up or comedy, but I saw you did you combined comedy and wine early on when you were kind of starting out. So tell me what lessons you've learned through that stand-up training that you bring in today. What do you learn in stand-up comedy that you think is applicable to selling?
Absolutely. There's one fly in this house, and he always wants to be in my room here when I'm doing a Zoom.
Oh, no.
It must be the wine. Yeah, it could be. I actually started my business and doing live tastings for quite a while, and then the stand-up was just a side thing that I thought would make me a better presenter. And I've always wanted to do it, but never had the guts to do it. So probably about 12 years ago, I took a class at the DC Improv, which is called 5 Minutes to Funny. And basically you had 4 classes. You use your life as your source of comedy, because it's always the best. And then your graduation is getting up on the DC Improv stage and doing 5 minutes of material with a live audience. It's quite scary. I don't really remember the 5 minutes, but, I had comedy that I still use today about being in the wine business and what my daughter's teachers think I do for a living. Being married to a chef. I'm married to a chef, so that has some fun things with it. My husband actually helped me with some of the material, which was fun. And what does it teach you? I mean, certainly to laugh at yourself, because there's so much to, and for me, it's just always been a thing that I do. I'd rather, something bad might happen, obviously not traumatic, but I'm going to try to find something funny in a way to laugh about it rather than going down a serious rabbit hole or something. So I felt that it helps you be better on your feet. It really helps you just, kind of incorporate what's funny, and that helps people feel at ease. And when I make fun of myself, like you said, then people are like, okay, she doesn't take herself too seriously. I can tell her that, Mad Dog is the first wine I ever tried, even though that's not really wine, but who cares, So I did that training just thinking it was going to be fun, and that was the end of it. And then I really started thinking about, what if I would combine some of my stand-up with the wine tasting and some games. And I worked with a comedy writer, and I created a 1-hour show that I actually still do to this day called Something to Wine About. And I just did it Saturday at a winery in Maryland here. And it's just really fun. It's like you got the placemat like you do at your wineries when you go. You got your glasses. I get up, I do a little set, we start tasting, we have, jelly bean thing that you've, experienced. We taste through the wines. There's food pairings, a couple games I created, and then even a song I wrote called the Wine Drinker's Anthem that we all sing together.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I mean, I do it sometimes for corporate groups or for consumer groups. It just depends on what people are looking for. But it's a little edgier than maybe our tasting that you experienced.
Okay. Now I'm intrigued. Now I want to get that experience. Talk to our marketing.
Yeah, maybe for Inspire something live, it would be a great Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, as we kind of close out, like what things like would you tell to the person who's maybe, their full-time gig is in sales, they're maybe a fellow sommelier or they're in the hospitality industry and they're like, I'm not in sales. I'm in the wine business, I'm in the hospitality business, I don't have to sell you on wine. I don't have to convince you to like wine. It's like either, like you like it or not. So what advice would you give them, to, maybe find some of these skills within themselves and to, view it as less, like you said in the very beginning, less, icky or, grimy or maybe, like something that's like not a worthy profession.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think, our job, I mean, if you're thinking about maybe a somm or even a very wine savvy waiter, like you might get in New York City where they're, they know the wine list better than, a lot of people, it's about surprising and delighting the guest. It's about them walking away with this wow experience. And that's what I want to provide for my clients. And so it's about, just asking questions. What do you usually enjoy drinking? What's your favorite wine region? What are you into? What are you thinking of ordering food-wise? And just engaging. Again, that's the connection thing. And maybe they always drink Pinot Noir, and you're not going to change that tonight. But I find, and even myself, I love to leverage people like that and just say, I don't feel like picking anything. This is what I'm getting. I love this kind of wine, but I'm open to anything. It's giving that, you're giving them an experience of something new they might never have tried before. And so I think we had a Fiano as the white that we tried in the last one. And I bet most people had never tried a Fiano Italian white before. But if I know you already like Pinot Grigio or a Sauvignon Blanc, I feel like this style of wine will work. And isn't it super cool to walk away with a new favorite wine that you can share with your friends or whomever and just feel like, you've got something to a better place than when you started. So I think it is all about that connection, about how you make them feel. And that's what's going to make somebody come back and ask for you if you're the server, or ask for you as the somm. Word travels. And to me, that would be, a differentiator for any restaurant or other place. And it kind of all goes back to, and I know we've heard this saying like, oh God, know, like, and trust. But what you're doing is getting to know them, letting them get to know you. And the next time they're going to trust you with that pick because you listened to them, right? And you got them what they wanted. Not the wine you thought they should be drinking. That's the perfect pairing with that dish, but what the guests would really want.
Yeah. I think it's key, like, because, the key part, like, some people think, okay, getting people to like me, it's almost like a little selfish, or it's like, I'm like desperate or needy. But getting people to like you is getting people to know you, like, and people can't ever connect with you or like you if they don't know, like, hey, like something funny, like Laurie's first wine was out of a box, or that like you have done some of the, just like, as even though you're a somm, you still like a screw top wine every now and then, or something like that, or like, like what she's drinking right now.
It's screw caps are not social suicide, Alex. They're fine.
Yeah. So it's like it's a common thing that we think. So all of the. It's like you've gathered all of the like you're thinking about the problem, you know, all the time. Like, what are the problems people are thinking? Well, I there's too many selections out there, and I just want what I want. Okay,
Right.
well, I can still ask you a few questions about what you normally drink and what are you eating tonight, and what regions, or like, have you ever, you know, gone to a like all these different things, and go, you know what, if you go ahead, like if that's what you want, absolutely. You know, if that's what you like, you may like this, like that you may never have heard of something like this, or I don't know if you've ever tried this, but if you like this, you may like that. Or if you like this style, you may go in this direction. And like when you have something that you're like my friends, like they don't know anything about Frangiacorta, you know, like it's a, you know, sparkling wine, or it's a you know, it's a different type of champagne, you know, similar to champagne. I'm going to get that and be like, you know, I remember Laurie was the person who, you know, taught me about that. You're remembered, you know, it's a difference of that event being fun and you specifically being remembered. Because I have to imagine you get a lot of maybe repeat business for it. Like, I just want you, like, I don't care about like the event, Laurie, like, what, can we just have you do something and we'll figure it out later? Like, do you find that, you know, happens?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And again, it's like, you know, it's an experience. I think, you know, you wrote that in your LinkedIn recap of our tasting, is that it's not just, you know, me giving you 100 facts about these three wines, because what I'm there to is to create experience. And yes, you're getting great wine knowledge, you're getting some great facts about all the wines, but the key is that you're walking away interacting with the other people who are on there, and that you got to interact if you wanted to with me and with the other people, and that you're like, wow, that was really fun. That wasn't like watching paint dry.
No.
So yeah, just being focused on that experience and the connection is, to me, that's everything.
Awesome. Well said. Well, Laurie, I always close out every podcast getting to know a little bit more about you, the real person. So this is the fun question that you may have not asked before, and it may stump you. So like okay. I'll just prep you with that. But like, if I asked your husband, the people that are closest to you, you know, what is just something that is so totally Laurie, that would be only something that Laurie would do, maybe something that happened to her that would only happen to Laurie? You know, what would they tell me that is just, you know, something that could only happen to you, and that's just so totally you?
I'm going to take a sip on that. Hold on.
Yeah. Cheers. Yeah.
Cheers. What would only happen to me? Well, this was a funny story, and it wasn't just me in this story, but it does kind of, maybe it's funny, and it's something that that happens. So my husband and I went to Italy on our honeymoon, and our first stop was Lake Como. I don't know if you've ever been, but beautiful place.
I want to so bad, yeah.
And they lost my luggage on the way to Italy, so I'm already a little irritated from that. That's never fun. And then there was a strike going on, so they said it would definitely be several days before I got the said luggage. That's always fun. But my husband and I ended up going out to this bistro that night, and we were sitting down, and you know, you're ready for the whole Italian experience. They bring bread out, there's olive oil on the table, and there's this bowl, and of course we've all done this, right? Whatever Italian restaurants, Macaroni Grill, wherever you go, you pour the olive oil and you dip your bread in there and you just start tasting and enjoying, right? Maybe a little salt, the whole experience. And so all of a sudden, like, everyone in the restaurant is laughing their butts off, including the waiters and everyone, and looking at us, and we're like, what did we do? Like, we're not sure. Like, we must have made some sort of faux pas. But we thought we were doing all the right things, right? We weren't wearing white sneakers. We were wearing dark jeans, all the things you're warned about. And the waiter came over, and I said, you need to tell me what's so funny. And he said, well, that bowl is an ashtray.
No.
Now, a clean ashtray, but
that's fine.
And then, you know what, we could have been like really upset or sort of mad, but we laughed our butts off, because it's just so funny when you're in a foreign country, just the silly things that you just don't translate. And one other quick thing, our rental car on the way there, we were hearing all this like noise from the undercarriage, and there was a plastic. And we had gotten a Mercedes because we were splurging, honeymoon. There's a plastic undercarriage that protects everything underneath the car, but a screw had come out. And I was like, just keep going. I just need to get to the hotel and sleep. So we just like go for it. It's like kind of hitting the ground every now and then. So we found like an Italian hardware store because my husband's like, I just need some duct tape and I can fix this and we'll return it, later. In Italy, I don't know if you know, duct tape is called American tape. It literally says that on the package, American tape, which I thought was classic. So I don't know. Silly
Defines
things.
the whole trip,
Just
silly
silly
Americans taking
Right.
bread out of an ashtray.
You can't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
we all do these embarrassing things. Just most of us, are afraid to talk about them. Just talk about them. It's so, relatable because everyone has something.
I think you need to, bring an ashtray to your next tasting and maybe a little olive oil and bread and just go to town before make a wine sandwich out of that. Well, Laurie, it's just always a pleasure to see you and speak to you. Where can people find out more about you and maybe, hire you for one of their events if they are, willing,
Love it.
like if they want to like really connect and get and really, wow their clients, where can they find you?
Yeah, just head over to thewinecoach.com, thewinecoach.com. That's my site. All the socials, I'm pretty much at The Wine Coach. And there's a contact form there. You can shoot me an email, and we can see what you're looking to create and create that wow experience for whatever objectives you're looking to do, and have fun. Have fun. That's it, right? Because everybody remembers an experience they had with others that was really fun, and that's what I hope to create for my clients.
And I can attest to that. You absolutely do. Well, Laurie Forster, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You've been an awesome person and joy to talk to. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. Cheers.
Cheers.
Got to give one last toast. Cheers.
All right. Over. What do you say? Tell everyone the quote.
Oh yes. Over a bottle of wine, many a friend is made. So hopefully those listening reach out. Love to connect and be friends. And Alex, of course. This is our third time tasting together now. So Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laurie.